not, you can watch for the 2 seconds that I'm going to attempt to do this problem, just so you can see, did I even get it in the right location? Does that make sense? So I'm going to do number 4 really fast, because I left it with you yesterday to see if you could do it on your own. So this is one I want you to double check. Your center is -3, 0. Hopefully you knew that. So -3, 0 is right here. There's my center. Now, from the center, I'm going to go right and left 5, up and down 4, so it almost mimics a circle. Or I should say, it's going to go right and left 5, but then what they call the minor is up and down 4, even though we don't draw the minor, okay? Because it's a transverse axis, it's a hyperbola, but we are going right and left 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and there's where my vertices will go. It is horizontal type of hyperbola. The book says you could go up and down 4 for what they call the minor axis, but on a hyperbola they don't have that, even though the book talks about it. So I know it's kind of weird. Anyway, did everyone get those dots right? The 5 right and left? Yep. Okay, because that's your transverse axis, major axis, whatever you want to call it. Foci. B squared equals C squared minus A squared. A squared turns out to be the 25, because that's the positive term. That's the one out front. The B squared is the 16. You'd add this across, and I get 41. Is that right? Take the square root of that. Square root of 41 is just above 6. Because the square root of 36 is 6, so it's just above 6, so it's 5, 6-ish. 5, 6-ish. Alright, so there's the foci 1 and 2. That's where your foci should be located. They're along the major axis that you had. My asymptotes, if I do this really quick, the asymptotes are positive, negative. The number below y is 4, the number below x is 5. So I'm going up 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, over 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Down 4, over 5. So here's one of the asymptotes. Boom, and the other one. And the other one. Again, using the slope form, 4 over 5, either direction, up or down. And so my branches are going to hug up against that. And so this is a traditional hyperbola. This is what they normally look like. That number 3 we did yesterday was really unique. It was really skinny. It was just different than all the rest of them. Questions at all? See how fast it's supposed to be? It's supposed to be a minute or 2. But you gotta know what you're doing. You gotta know where the center is. You gotta know which direction you need to be heading. And knowing which direction this thing is going is because whatever fraction is positive, that's the direction my hyperbola is going. Well, the x in this case. Questions at all? Alright, let's go down to number 5. We're going to actually start there today. My goal is to get through the end. I will leave one problem for you to do kind of on your own, like I've always done in the past, so you can kind of see it. But we're going to start with number 5. This is one that I gave you the graph, and you have to come up with a formula for it. So it's kind of going backwards. Okay, so it is a parabola. We have a parabola here, and the idea is to come up with the equation for it. Now, what I need first is the vertex of my parabola. Where are we starting?
-1, -1.
-1, -1. Good. So there's my center, or my vertex. Okay. And obviously, in the very end, we will have to figure out the foci and directors. It does say that in the directions. All right. So here's my vertex. So I can already kind of start the formula, the generic formula for this, because I already know where it starts. So the generic formula for a parabola, since it's going up and down, and that's the type of parabola you should be used to, it's doing this. It's y minus your center number, so y minus a -1. And then we'll get to the part that goes out front. X minus the number that's in front of that vertex, so x minus the -1. Because again, this is my x number, that's the y number. That's where I'm subtracting those numbers on the inside. Now, what happens to the double negatives? They go positive. Okay. Now, I'm not done yet. I still have to figure out what goes out here, because that's my goofy number. I know it's going to be negative. I already know that. Like, there is going to be a negative number here. The reason being that I already know that is because what direction is my bowl facing? It's facing down. It has to be negative. If it was turned sideways, like if this was a parabola that's going along the x-axis like sideways, then if it went this direction, it would be negative as well. But the letters x and y would be switched. Okay, questions so far in the set. I'm almost done with the formula. Like, it's really quick. You just know the center, boom, or the vertex, sorry, and then boom, you can just immediately go into the formula. The only thing I don't know is the number that's supposed to go out front of the parenthesis. That comes from the distance to the foci and the directrix. The problem is, I didn't draw those for you. I didn't draw the focus, I didn't draw the directrix. So how do you find it? You have to use, and I know this seems weird, you have to use one of the coordinates from your graph, but not the vertex. So can somebody give me a coordinate that we are most definitely hitting on this curve? -3, -2, that'll work. I like that. You just pick one of them. Another one could have been 1, -2. You could have picked 3, -5, or -5, -5. There's a lot of dots you could have chose. But we're going to pick that one. So we're going to pick -3, -2. Again, this is your choice. You had to pick one that is clearly on that curve. It can't be like close. It's got to be clear. I agree with that one. That one is right on the curve. Okay, so what we're going to do is I want you to pick just kind of a random letter. I'm gonna call this a weird letter. I'm going to call it let's call it W, because I want to know what W is. Does that make sense? Like, I don't know that number yet. And it could be a fraction, it could be a whole number, but we know it's going to be negative in the end. We know that. Okay, so to find what that W is, here's what you do. You take the 3 and 2 that you just chose and you plug it into the formula that I have right now. This is the formula. Probably should keep it over here. The camera can only see this part. This is the formula that I currently have. Now I'm going to get rid of the negative sign for right now. But this is currently the formula that we have. Correct? That's what we have. Because the 2 negative signs cancel, right? And the double negatives. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 3, -2, and I'm going to plug it into x and y up here. And I'm going to solve for w. But we know it should be negative in the end. So x, the choice you picked was -3. The y number you picked was -2. And we're going to solve. Does that make sense where I plugged them in? And we can solve for the number that's supposed to be out front. Once I know that number, then I can go find the directrix and focus. So this turns out to be -2. We're going to square that. This turns out to be a -1. What's -2 squared? 4. So this is 4 times w, -1. And what do we do next? Divide by the 4. So this is the number that's supposed to go out front. And what did I tell you? It was supposed to be negative, correct? So we found that out. So here's my final formula. Y plus 1. We had a -1/4 out front. X plus 1 squared. So boom. There's my formula. I have the vertex plugged in, and I have that number that was supposed to be out front of the parentheses plugged in. Does everyone understand how I did that? It's meant to be like super simple. Like, you're just supposed to plug it in, like it's an easy fix. You just kind of figure out the number that's supposed to be out front. This could have been a whole number, it could be a fraction, it could be whatever it comes out to be. Okay, so don't like read into it. All you should know is like if it's positive or negative. That's the thing you should be thinking of. I knew it was negative. I already kind of predicted that it was going to be a negative number before I started. The W was the number we found. Now, why that's important is because the W number, the number that's out front, tells you where the focus and directrix is. So that's what we're going to be using. Okay, does anyone still need this? How I did that? Okay, so let's go to the focus and directrix. The number that's out front, and this is what we talked about a long time ago when we were talking about parabolas. The number that's out front is represented by this. This is the number that is supposed to be out front of your parentheses. It's supposed to be a 1/4c, right? The c is the distance to the focus and directrix. That's the generic formula. And again, this will be on the board tomorrow. I'll have that on the board for your generic formulas for foci. What number is out front of my parentheses right now? 1/4. You can ignore the negative. Negative just tells me I'm going up or down. Okay, so that's the number out front. So what does this c number need to be to make a 1/4? The c number is on the bottom, by the way. What number does it need to be? A 1. Because if I take 4 times 1, you agree that it would make 4. Do you agree with that? Again, and then, now if that doesn't compute with you, like your brain just melted right there, here's what you do. The ones on the top cancel. and you divide by 4. The number should be 1. So, knowing that it's 1, now I can figure out the focus and directrix. The focus should be 1 down, and the directrix should be 1 up. So there is my 2 spots. Now, you do have to write them down. So what's the coordinate for the focus? What is this coordinate for this focus?
-1, -2.
Good. So the focus is -1, -2. And the directrix is a line, it's horizontal, it's going through the y-axis. What number did it hit through the y-axis? 0. So it was y equals 0, because that's a horizontal line. Now, if it was any other number, you just go y equals whatever number it passed through. That's probably the most special case of a horizontal line, right on top of the x-axis. Okay, questions on how to do the 2 parts. It's meant to be a quick problem. If I wasn't explaining it, it would go quick. Like you write down the formula, you plug in your vertex, you pick it, choose one of the curved numbers, you plug it in, you solve for the w that's supposed to be out front, and once you have that, you can write down your final formula, and then you can solve for the c number. It's 1/4c. This will be written on the board tomorrow. I'll say focus for parabolas is 1/4c. And if it's a decimal, fine, you go up and down a decimal from the vertex number. Questions, comments, concerns? Perfect, let's go on to the next one. We're on to number 6. Okay, number 6. Now, I picked a special case here. I'm going to apologize on the test. I will not do this to you. I'll pick one that goes up and down, because that's the only types of homework problems I assign. I picked one that went right and left. I didn't even realize until I already printed it. I will not do that to you on the test. I'll go an up and down problem. So it'll be an x squared problem. That's what you should know. Right now, this is a y squared. There's only one variable. So knowing that it's y squared, it's going to be going right and left. Sorry, I didn't realize I did it until I already printed. All right, but anyways, we're going to rearrange this thing. What you do on a parabola, anytime you have a square term, you're going to move it to the other side and get it by itself. So on this one, I'm going to move the y squared over, and I'm going to move the 2y over. Because I want to get anything that's squared by itself. So if it was an x squared, I move that over to the other side. If there's any weird numbers over here or letters, fine, you move them around until only the item that's squared and the letters that match it are on the one side by itself. Everything else goes over here. So numbers, other letters that don't match it. Because again, this is a parabola. What gives it away, other than reading the directions, it only has one square term. So that's why it's a parabola. It's going one direction. So we have to complete the square. To complete the square on this problem, I have to factor out the -1 out front. So this is what you do even with an x. You factor out the -1. If there's a 4, factor out the 4, whatever number's out front. Okay, so I'm going to factor out the -1. When I factor that out, I'm left with y squared by itself and a -2y, because I divided both by -1. So I'm pulling that out. So dividing both by -1s. Out front over here, I have the 12 and the 35. Questions so far? Okay, then how do we finish the rest of the completing the square process? Say it? Half the middle squared. Half the middle is -1. We square it, that's 1. I take that number times the number outside, which is negative, and that's so that's a -1, and that's what I'm putting on the other side. So it's always half the middle squared. You take it times the number out front if there's a number sitting there, and that's what you put on the other side. So in my case, this is what I have so far: 12x minus 36, -1, and now I can factor this apart. This side over here is a y, a minus, and then half the middle is a 1, and we square it. We only have one more step to do here. And we can draw and figure out where this thing needs to go. Okay, questions before I get to the last steps here? hopefully all these problems are starting to kind of, they seem like you do the same steps every time, hopefully. I guess the only weird one was number 5. That was the only kind of weird one so far. Last step, I want to get this x by itself. So I want to get this x by itself, and I want to keep this parenthesis. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide both sides by 12. That way this x turns out to be just a single x by itself. That's what we do on parabolas. You want to get this letter by itself. So if I divide by 12, here's what I get. I get x, I get a -3, and over here, when I divide by 12, the 12 just goes to the bottom. You just put it on the bottom, that's like dividing by 12. So whatever number's sitting out front, that's what you divide by it. Now we know this is horizontal because the y is squared, so it's tilted on its side. I can already tell you tomorrow it'll be vertical, it'll be up and down, because that's the problems we did in homework. I didn't realize I did this until it was too late. All right, so we get to this point here, and now the idea that we're going to do here is we're going to do the vertex. So what's the number with the x? 3, okay. What's the number with the y? 1. It's always the opposite of those numbers. I know they were negative, so we made them positive. So my vertex is 3, 1. So there's my vertex. That's the start of the bowl. We know the bowl's going sideways. So we'll draw that here in a minute. But does everyone understand where I got my starting point? Now, which direction is the bowl going? Yeah, we know it's sideways. Is it going to the right or to the left? And what gives it away? To the left, because?
It's negative.
Negative, so it's going this direction. And again, I'm doing a very generic drawing. I just want to see that you know the concept behind it. Okay, it's not accurate. I didn't even find, y-intercepts and find x-intercepts. I'm just doing a very generic drawing. All right, and the last part, we have to find the focus and Directrix. That's in the directions. You do have to find those locations. So that's where you have to use the number out front. So normally to find the focus and Directrix, it's 1/4c. In my case, what's the number out front? 112. So what does my c number have to be to make that a 12? 3. So my c number is a 3. Again, the c number is on, the variable is actually on the bottom. So that's why it's 3 times 4 will give you 12. So that's 3. So that means my focus is 3 away, so it's here. There's my focus, so that coordinate we'll figure out, and then the other one is 3 back. So there's the Directrix. And now we have to find those coordinates. We have to write them down. So can somebody tell me the coordinate for the focus? Okay, good. Focus is 0, right and left, up 1. I agree with that. And the Directrix. It would be x equals for the Directrix for sure, because it's up and down, it's only hitting the x-axis. What number is it hitting?
6.
6. It's going up and down, so it's x equals. There you go, there's all the parts. Okay, are we good with number 6? Perfect. Let's move on to 7 and 8. Okay. All right, 7 and 8. All right, so in this one, it wants you to identify. All right, so 7 and 8, you have to first identify what these equations are. Is it a hyperbola? Is it a parabola? Is it an ellipse? Is it a circle? You have to kind of identify what it is. Try to do the best you can to identify by explaining it. I'll tell you why I want you to do it this way. Okay, it will make sense when we get to the semester test. I'll explain. There's a slight modification that I have to make on the semester practice schedule. So, and it's not my choice. We have to do it. So, so on 7 and 8, we're identifying the equation that we're going to complete the square. So you have to identify it. So let's talk about this one. Number 7. What can you tell me about 7? What type is it? Ellipse. Okay, let's talk about y. Why is it an ellipse? You are correct, but why?
It's 2 squared. plus.
2 squares, so that's why it's not a parabola. Keep going.
It's plus.
It's a plus, so that means it's either a circle or an ellipse. So it's one or the other. So those are great explanations. But what's the final thing that gives it that it's an ellipse, not a circle?
The numbers up front.
Say it.
The numbers up front are different.
The numbers out front are different in front of the square terms that you guys talked about. So there's both squares. It's a plus, that gives it away that it's an ellipse, not a circle, or not a hyperbola. But then what makes it an ellipse, not a circle, is because of the 2 numbers are different out front. So those are the things I want you to explain. Now, I know that seems weird. I do want you to explain that on paper. So write that down right now. So write that down where you're at. Because you do have to identify and understand and give me evidence why. That's a part of this, that you can do that simple stuff to check whether it's a hyperbola or it's something. So you're going to get a couple points for giving me the explanation and doing the best you can. So it's an ellipse because it's a plus sign. It's not a circle because there's 2 different numbers out front. And that you talk about the square terms. It's square, so it's not a parabola. Like you're giving me all the evidence why this is an ellipse. Does that make sense? You have to explain it in words. Do the best you can to write that stuff down. Okay, I'll explain why you're doing that in a minute. Okay, we're good so far? All right, 7. We have to complete the square, figure it out, then figure out the foci, directrix, asymptotes, whatever it is. So on this one, since it's an ellipse, the only thing we have to do is figure out where the vertices go and figure out the foci and the center. We don't have a directrix, we don't have a, asymptotes on this one. So that's the other idea, okay? Okay, so to complete the square here, to figure out like where they're at, again, that might be something you want to explain in words, that this thing would have a center, because it is an ellipse. It does have major, minor axes. It will have 2 foci, or the 2 gravitational forces would be. It would not have a directrix, because it's not a parabola. It would not have an asymptote. Okay, do you understand why you're doing all that? You have to explain all that stuff in the words. Now, what I would like you to do is actually complete the square and actually figure out where those things are. After you explain in words, like these are the things we can find. Because you're probably getting more points for the explanation than the actual work finding the parts. That you have these pieces, these are the things that fall into place. And again, the formulas will be on the board. Okay, anyone know why we're doing all that writing? I don't have an idea. Have any of your teachers talked to you yet?
What?
Okay, on a semester test, we're given the directions that we have to give you a race format question. Okay, so that means a race format question is where you have to do explanations, you have to do reasonable responses. I have to do it as well.
Isn't a new thing in every class?
A race, my question.
Race in math. So, my question, and I have to give it, so I'm going to comply. This will be the question that you're going to do the race format one on. Does that make sense why you're explaining all that? Because it's the easiest one I can try to apply to it. So, you can explain in words what type it is, why it's that, give me evidence, and you can explain the parts that would be applicable. That's the best thing I could do for you because it makes the most sense for me. And it's less stressful for you. Now, we're not going to, I know that this is not a semester test. We are going to do this on the semester test when you get to that problem. Does that make sense? This is just a little bit of practice. We'll practice this more on Wednesday next week. So I know it's silly, but I have to do it, so I'm going to comply. So you have to give me the best response possible. So when you answer this question, you have to go, yes, this is an ellipse, because, and now go into your explanations and give me evidence and all that. And these are the things that are applicable because blah, blah, blah. So you have to restate the answer for the question, answer the question, give me evidence, expand on the evidence. Does that make sense? That's a part of the race format. Okay? The reason why every class is doing this now is because our Iowa Test Basic Skills questions this year will be those. The Iowa Test Basic Skills, the Iowa Assessment, Student Progress Assessment, whatever they're calling ISASP, or whatever the new acronym is now, is difficult. It's very different than previous years where you fill in bubble sheets. It's new. It's brand new this year. So they've rehauled Iowa Test Basic Skills completely. This is your practice what you're gonna have to do in math. So, because every question will have a couple of those. So, okay, does that make sense? I'm practicing it early so you're not overwhelmed by the day you get there and like, word, we've never done this before. At least you've seen it from me. I will be gentle in the grading because it's your first attempt at it, so don't stress out. I think this is by far the easiest problem to apply to it, is we can do that. Okay, are we good so far? All right, what I'd like you to do that same for number 8. Explain like what type it is, try to figure out, the focus, Directrix. I'm telling you kind of what type it is, give me the evidence, why it would be that type. I'll leave those to you for you. If you have questions, you can ask me in a little while. Okay, let's go to our semester guide today.
So do we still have to like solve that problem out then?
Yeah, you still have to you don't have to draw, you just have to tell me the parts that I want. I want the center, the focus, the Directrix, but you can just find it with equations. You don't have to actually draw. So yeah, self-finish that. All right. Yesterday. Oh, I better restart the game.
Close that.
All right. Yesterday we did, or I guess Tuesday we did 1, 2, and 3. Yesterday we did 4 and 5, and I really left this one for you. Anyone actually get to the final answer on number 4? I had something like
I think that.
x squared plus 12x
Did you have 2x cubed plus 12x squared plus 12x plus 10?
plus 10, yes. That's the answer I had. So 2x cubed, 12x squared, 12x, 10. That's what I got for this one. So if you want to double check your answer. This one I left for you and I didn't like doing that, but I had to. We didn't have a lot of time. If that's one that you didn't get, make sure maybe you come and talk to me after we're done here. I'll give you some time where you can actually work on this next question too. But we're going to move on to the next
X
one.
plus 5.
We're going to start with 6 today. We're going to do 7, and that's where we'll stop. Monday we'll do 8 and 9. And then Tuesday you'll do, I guess we'll do, Monday we'll do 8, 9, and 10. And then on Tuesday we'll do 11, 12, and 13. So that kind of gives you the idea of what we're doing. So today we're just going to do 2. We're starting with 6, we'll do 7. Does that make sense what we're doing? Okay, this is a differential quotient. I have the formula already printed. I will not need to put it on the board. The differential quotient is where you take this function, and I will not give you one this difficult. I'm just putting this on the practice guide so you get the idea of what you're doing. You're going to take this function, you're going to plug in x plus h into all these x's, write that down. Then you're going to subtract the original function, which is this thing again, and put it all over h. And then you're going to simplify that thing down. It's way more work than you think it is. So here's the idea. I'm going to start you off. To start off is the hardest part about setting this thing up. You have to take the original function and plug x plus h's in. So here's what I have. X plus h squared plus 2x plus h minus 1. Does everyone understand how I plugged the x plus h into the original problem? You took out all the x's and you plugged in x plus h into where there was an x in a parenthesis. Then that's the original problem just with x plus h's. Now I'm going to subtract the original function. The original function is negative 3x squared plus 2x minus 1. And this all goes over what letter? H. If you do this correctly, if you're doing all of this setup correctly, and you simplify and you FOIL and you do all the little things, in the very end, anything that does not have an h on it will go away on the top. Then eventually we'll divide and we'll be left. Your answer in the very end on this problem, on this one, should be a binomial, a trinomial. It'll be something left with letters in it. Okay, so just be aware of that. It's not going to be like, oh, my answer's 12. It's not going to be that. I can kind of predict what it's going to be, but it's not going to be as simple as you think it is. Okay, so doing the work here, I need to FOIL that bad boy out because it's x plus h squared, so you have to FOIL first, outer, and last. I'm going to have to distribute this little piece and distribute the negative sign back here because that negative sign is in front of that parenthesis. Is there any questions with the setup? Now I'm about to do this, and sorry, I'm going to go pretty quick. Hope you can keep up. So foiling these two parentheses out, there's two parentheses there. It's x squared plus 2xh plus h squared. Sorry, I can do that in my head. Next, distributing the 2, I have 2x plus 2h minus 1. And now I'm distributing the negative sign to the back. I have a plus 3x squared minus 2x plus 1 all over h. What do I have to do with that negative 3 out front? Distribute. You have to distribute after you FOILed. You can't do it before. You have to just wait till after you've FOILed this together before you can distribute negative 3. Distributing the negative 3, here's what I get. Negative 3x squared, negative 6xh, minus 3h squared, plus 2x, plus 2h, minus 1, plus 3x squared, minus 2x, plus 1, all over h. Sorry, I'm going really fast. I want to get this one done so we can talk about the next one. So far, so good? Yeah? All right. So, last thing. What did I warn you earlier? Everything without h's should cancel. In fact, you're going to see it right here in a second. The 3x squares are gone. Boom. Because one's positive, one's negative. The 2x's are gone. They don't have h's. The 1's are gone. They don't have h's. Everything without an h is gone if you did this right. Things that are left. Negative 6xh. Negative 3h squared. A 2h. And then this is all over h. Does that make sense? Like everything without h's went away at first. Now the last part is you have to divide everything by h, and this will be your last thing. Now, when you divide by h, it will cancel all h's in certain cases. So you will have stuff that's left without h's on it, so don't like freak out. But that's the initial part. Okay, so let's actually divide. What do I get when I divide everything by h?
Negative 6x
Keep going.
minus 3h
Good.
plus 2.
It's 2. There's your answer. And I kind of warned you it was going to either be a trinomial, binomial, something like that. And yes, I know you're thinking, Ward, you just told me there's not going to be anything without h's and stuff. Yeah, in the very end there will be, but at that first part, like when you FOILed and distributed, things will cancel out before you have to divide everything by h. The final answer might not have h's in it. I will not give you one this difficult. I'll probably pick an easier one. Sorry, I just picked this one at first to show you the level of what you have to be able to do. This is a big deal for calc. They have to do one of these on their semester test as well. They just have to do a way harder one than you guys. Okay, questions? All right, let's go to the last one today. This is our last problem. It's number 7 today. Okay, number 7, we have to come up with a linear equation for the following information. It has to be in point slope form and standard form. So you have to read the instructions. That instruction could change test day. I might say, hey, I want it in slope-intercept form instead of standard. Or maybe I want it in general form instead of slope-intercept form. I could change these all up. So be careful of which two I ask for. I'm going to give you this right off the bat. It will be point slope in the beginning. That's the first one, right? Point slope form. The second one might change. So just be careful of that. Okay, but let's do this one. What do I have to do first in this problem?
Find slope.
Yeah, remembering what point slope is, but find slope. Okay, to find slope, we have to subtract the y's, subtract the x's. Okay, so subtract the y's. What are my y numbers up here?
5 and 15.
Okay, it doesn't matter the order. I'm going to go the 15 and 5. That's the first ones I heard somebody say. So since I'm going the back minus the front, right, the 15 and the 5, I have to go 8 minus 3. This is going to turn out to be 10 over 5, which simplifies to be 2. Now, if you want to leave that 2 over 1, that's fine. If you're the person that wants to leave it 10 over 5, fine, you do you. Now, what we have to do next is write it in point slope form. Point slope, if you don't remember, because I heard some people don't remember it. These will be on the board, by the way. I think they're going to be over here by Jacob and Madeline. They're going to be on that board over there, by the way. Here's my formulas for the linear equations, right? That's point slope form. What's my slope? 2, right? And now all we have to do is plug into this formula one of the coordinates that they gave you originally. What's one of the, what coordinate do you like the best?
3 and 5.
3 and 5? Okay. And you get to pick that. You can pick either one. You don't mix and match them, just pick one of them. So I'm doing the 3, 5. The 3 is the x number, the 5 is the y number. Boom, you already have point slope form. Right there, you have probably 3 points already right there. It took 2 points to find slope and 1 point to plug into to find point slope form. Now, what we have to do is we have to rearrange this thing to get it to be in slope-intercept form. If you don't remember what slope-intercept form is, it's this one. This is slope-intercept form. If you want to change it to standard, you just move the mx over. That's all you do. If you want to go to general, move the b number over so that there's a 0 on the one side. Okay, we good so far? So to get to slope-intercept form, what do I have to do with the 2 first? Say it. Distribute, okay? So y minus 5 is 2x minus 6. And then we'll have to move the 5 over. What do I get at the very end? 2x minus 1. That's your answer. That's slope-intercept form. To get to standard, you just move the 2x to the other side. So it'd be a negative 2x plus y equals 1. Negative 1. Generally, move the negative 1 over and make it plus. So that's how you get them to the different forms. Now, there's a purpose for these. This form is really good for if you're trying to draw, or if you have data and you're going to an equation. This form is really good if you want to draw it, like graph it. That's why we have these forms. Okay, questions, comments, concerns. Okay, now, we'll get to the last ones on Monday and Tuesday. Remember, what do we have tomorrow?
Chapter
Test, Chapter 9 test. I'll make sure that both videos from yesterday and today are online. I need to fix the website, it's not working quite right. Both videos will be online unless you want to watch them. I'll try to get them online.